Glasses. What hat should you wear today? There we go. Energy. 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 Welcome to CC Writes. My name is CC Lefke, and today I'm going to the moon. I'm not going to the moon. I'm just plotting my story. But the story could be on the moon. It's not going to be on the moon. For anyone following along, I've been working on a Spider-Woman fanfiction script. I've done the brainstorming, I've done the research, and now it's time to plot. Plotting is my favorite part of the writing process. It sets up a strong foundation for the story and gives me room to think less so that I can be more creative and be a little more in tune with my characters as I write. A strong plot sets boundaries, but it also allows room for some creative freedom and for really skilled writers to innovate. Since I've already done the research and the brainstorming, plotting should come pretty naturally in this stage. I expect to get it done in one sitting, and then I can move on to the next stage, which is learning how to write a movie script, because I've never actually done that before. So then, let's get started. So I brought up all of my research and brainstorming notes so that I could have those to reference when I'm actually creating the plot. And I also have this handy dandy spreadsheet that I made. If you've seen any of my videos before, you've seen me do the circle plotting method, which is the Dan Harmon method. What I've done here is I've taken all of the sections, put them into their own little spot on the spreadsheet. It's just gonna help me better organize everything that's gonna happen in the story and make sure that I don't miss any key storytelling elements that really need to go in there to make it a good story. And so we're just going to start in the very first section, which is the zone of comfort. The zone of comfort is displaying what the character's life is like before everything changes. Now, with a lot of superhero movies, what they'll do is they'll give the backstory of the main character that puts them into basically directly into the path that has them become a superhero. But for my main character, for Spider-Woman, when she first got her powers, it actually set her on a path to become a villain. And I'm telling the story of when she transitions from villain into hero, which means her history, how she got her powers and everything. While it does have a little bit to do with who she is, and there is going to be some of that backstory going on throughout it, her zone of comfort is actually going to be while she's actively being a supervillain. And that means, interestingly, I'm actually going to have her start off as an adult where she is going about her daily life as a part of Hydra. And that just means I have to think about what her life would look like in that way. I do know that I want her to be in a mental hospital to start out with, so that's gonna be the very beginning setting. It's gonna be where she's making friends with Lindsay McCabe. It's basically going to be her mentor and how to be a good person, but not necessarily the mentor figure, just sort of like how to be human again. I think this should be good because it does set up a lot of her personality and the things that just kind of happen to her and without her understanding why. Basically, her life as normal is she's in a mental hospital as a court order. She was sent there after she was attacked by some people on the street, and she defended herself, but because she's strong, she, hurt them pretty bad. And the judge decided that she did it because she was vicious without any evidence, just had that feeling about her because of her passive pheromone ability. And so he was trying to sentence her to prison, but she had a lawyer who worked for Hydra, and he managed to keep her out of prison with a mental health plea. So she's currently in a mental hospital, serving time and getting treatment. This is where she meets Lindsay McCabe, but it also does a good job to set up exactly what's going on with her and who she is as a person. And I want to establish that she's shy, that she worries about what other people think about her. She very much wants to be loved and respected, but people treat her very cruelly. because of her fear-inducing pheromones. So very confused, very bitter about the things that are happening to her, and a strong connection to Hydra, to the point where they would protect her from going to jail or prison to keep her out of that system so that they can use her. Now, there are two parts of a character, especially a protagonist, that are exceptionally important. That's the greatest desire and the greatest flaw. And both of those need to be revealed within the zone of comfort, because it gives you the idea of who the person is, what it is that's going to drive every decision that they're going to make throughout the entire story, and the major thing that's going to keep them from it, the major internal thing that's going to keep them from it as it progresses. If I'm not mistaken, we already decided what her major desire is. All right, I'm just gonna have to make it up. Okay, so from what I remember about, I wrote these down somewhere. Finally found my notebook. Okay, that took a while, but I finally found my notebook and I can actually move forward now. The greatest desire that she has is she wants a place to belong. And then her greatest flaw is self-hatred. Now, in the zone of comfort, you also have to allude to the existence of the antagonist. She is going to believe that the antagonist is the Avengers. However, in reality, the antagonist is going to be the woman who works as the head of Hydra. She's going to think that the antagonist is the Avengers, when the antagonist is the person that she actually views as her mentor. So this brings us to, but they want something. And this is where she actually does something to try and achieve her greatest desire. And right now she sees her place of belonging as Hydra. The Hydra leader that gives her the mission, her mentor, is going to feed her some story about, how evil the Avengers are and everything that they've done to, corrupt everything. And this one Avenger, for a very short amount of time, is going to be vulnerable. And so they're sending her to kill that Avenger. Now here is a good part of the story, the hook. The hook is something that's going to come back later on in the story. It's something to sort of grab people's attention and let you know that there's some other more dangerous thing underneath the surface of what's going on in the story. The hook isn't usually a huge point in the story. It's not like a major plot point, but sometimes it is like a plot device. But it also needs to be very subtle, like something that you notice is there, but maybe you just don't think about it until later when everything goes down. Maybe like a tracking device, something that the main character, or something that the antagonist puts onto the main character with complete foreknowledge that everything's going to go wrong and that she's going to need to bury this person. And she's going to be using that as a way to try and trap the Avengers and give them direct access to where the Avengers' bases are as they take Spider-Woman in, because that's exactly what she expects them to do. And so that turns Spider-Woman into this sacrificial pawn. All right, and that takes us to the inciting incident. This is very important, okay? Inciting incident does not happen immediately before the intro to the new world, and that's where a lot of people put it. That is a huge mistake. You need your story to breathe. After the inciting incident happens, you need time for your main character to wallow in self-pity and guilt and uncertainty before they make a decision to pursue their greatest desire. I'm very serious about this. Don't put your inciting incident as the intro to the new world. You'll actually see this in a lot of action movies when it's done properly. What will happen is the inciting incident will happen, right? And the main character will be pegged as the villain. and they'll be taken in and they'll be questioned and they'll be watched by the police or whatever authority figure is there as they're trying to figure it out. They can either stay and fight it legally within the system, but because everything is set up against them, they're going to fail and they're going to, be killed or be sent to jail or what have you, or they can fight back. And that's what they end up doing in order to restore the world the way that they see that it should be. And it's in that moment between the inciting incident and the intro to the new world where all of the fears and hopes of the main character are really humanize them a lot. And so it's really important for you to see that sort of evolution of their thought process going from fear to plan, because that's when we decide that we love the characters, is during that moment. So the inciting incident is that when she goes to attack the Avenger, she ends up caught in an ambush. The antagonist appears, destroys the path to the desire. So she nearly gets caught. She's identified as a Hydra agent. They get a list of all of her regular contacts through Tony Stark's system, and she manages to escape just barely. And so then her first real loss is that after she escapes, she gets disavowed by Hydra, which is the only place where she feels like she can belong. Now, one thing that has to happen between the inciting incident and crossing the threshold into the second act is that she has to be given a chance to accept the status quo. So somebody has to contact her and try to convince her to just turn herself in to Hydra. But she knows she can't do it because if she does, they're just going to kill her. And she wants the opportunity to win her way back into Hydra. So I'm trying to think of who to use as the person who offers the chance. It could either be the antagonist or it could be somebody sent by the antagonist. I think somebody sent by the antagonist would be better. So that means I need to know what Hydra agents might be related to Spider-Woman. I wonder if I could just create a new Hydra villain. Or I could do something like have Morgan Le Fay working with Hydra. Morgan Le Fay doesn't really seem like a follower type though. It could be maybe the Brothers Grimm. I'm gonna say it's the Brothers Grimm. All right, so we're into the intro to the new world. This is always a fun part of the story because it's sort of seeing the world as it exists after it has changed. Sometimes that's very physical. You go out into like this new magical land. Or in other times it's very internal where everything around you stays the same, but your emotional plane of existence has completely changed. In this case, it's going to be a little bit of both. She can't stay in any of the same old places she used to go. She can't trust any of her old associates. She can't go back to Hydra. And she actively has to hide from Hydra. So in this case, I'm going to bring her back to Lindsay McCabe, who we established earlier on in the story. The friend is going to try and help her be maybe a little more normal, get along with people a little bit better, and it's not going to be super easy. At this point, she's just floundering. She has no plan for the future. She doesn't know what she's supposed to do, and if Hydra catches wind of her anywhere, they will kill her. So the question is, what is the magic and wonder of this new life? Because a lot of it she would be experiencing would be kind of fearful. It's kind of like when Alice in Wonderland goes down the rabbit hole and she comes across all these things that are magical and beautiful and interesting, and she's curious about everything, but then on the other side of it she comes across all of these dark elements to this new world that she's a part of. And that's what the introduction to the new world is all about. I think the magic and wonder has to be human kindness, and it would make her kind of want to be a part of it, except for the fact that most people can't get along with her at all. So the next thing that a character has to do is adapt to the new world, and we do that by forming a plan. Right now, her world exists as being on the run from Hydra, getting into fights with Lindsay's friends who absolutely hate her. She doesn't feel like she belongs, and she wants to belong more than anything, so she has to make a plan to get back to that moment where she can be among people who tolerate her at the very least. So she will have initial success where she's going to be fighting some of the Avengers, tracking them down, making attempts on their lives. She's going to have one targeted. All right, so here's what's going to happen. She's going to catch wind of Bucky Barnes, who is another traitor that she thinks that she can kill and bring back to Hydra to reinstate her position. She goes to kill him, they fight. So then in the middle of the fight, the blip happens. The people are reintegrated. All of the people that were disintegrated are brought back to life, and they are everywhere. Actually, I think what's going to happen is they fight. She's actually going to win and bring him back to Hydra. The people who were lost 5 years ago are brought back. Chaos ensues and Bucky manages to get away. The antagonist reveals her true nature and tries to kill Spider-Woman, and Spider-Woman is forced to flee with Bucky during everybody popping back up and everybody being confused. As they leave the facility together, they get surrounded by good guys. He ends up intervening so that they don't try to attack her, and he goes with them to fight the final battle in Endgame. She's left alone and has to escape the Hydra compound by herself now. But she understands that the antagonist is her true enemy, and she's going to fight her instead of the Avengers. So she ends up creating a trap for the antagonist using all of her abilities at her disposal, as well as her new friendship with Lindsay, who is an actress. So here's the fun part, and this is where everything starts to move the character from the place of innocence where she was before to a place of being an adult and understanding more of her place in the universe. And this is where some of the backstory of Spider-Woman is going to come in, because my plan is that the antagonist is the progeny of a previous person who had certain cells that were beginning to mutate. They were sort of a precursor to a mutant. She ended up developing the mutant powers, but the cells of the other person they were using in the genetic accelerator to create some sort of superpowered person. And because what they wanted to do is accelerate the genetic material so that it could get to the point where it was mutated. And they crossed that with the little bit of the super serum that they were able to get from Captain America's creation. So with those two things together, she ended up getting put in the machine along with that genetic material, which included some self-regeneration ability, and ends up developing the same powers as the antagonist. I'm excited about this idea. In order to get away, the antagonist ends up trapping Lindsay, and she tries to use her pheromone powers, but it doesn't actually work. I think at the beginning of the story, I'm going to establish that Lindsay is noseblind. And I know that's a very silly element to include, but I think it's a really great way to create somebody who Spider-Woman has the ability to be around without any chance of her getting too overcome by the pheromones. Lindsay doesn't have any special powers. She's like a B-tier actress, not somebody too popular or well-known, so she hasn't really gotten anything special going for her. And so I think having this like one thing that most people wouldn't consider to be an asset is actually what causes her to be able to have such a strong friendship with Spider-Woman. Because she's noseblind, she is not affected by the attraction pheromones that are released by the antagonist. So the antagonist has to use her version of the venom shot. She uses it to torture Lindsay, which draws out Spider-Woman. Spider-Woman was trying to catch the antagonist on film to send to the Avengers as evidence for one of the leaders in Hydra. She ends up capturing her using her abilities and the admission that she has the attraction pheromone abilities. That ends up getting, they're live streaming it, so it goes online, And so people at Hydra know about it, so she has to flee and get away while Spider-Woman goes to take care of Lindsay, who is seriously hurt at this point. The antagonist would be furious that she has to go to Hydra to do this. She has to use her abilities to subdue the other Hydra leaders, and she can't just do it through her intelligence and strength as a leader. And the fact that she had to resort to that makes her absolutely just boiling mad. And she blames Spider-Woman for having to do that. And to me, that's what's going to cement her as a major villain for this story, as somebody who's going to rise up and become this huge antagonist that Spider-Woman has to face. Spider-Woman takes Lindsay to the hospital. Bucky finds her at the hospital after the Battle of Endgame. It's revealed that they know each other because they've worked together occasionally in the past for Hydra. He mostly knows her as a little kid because it's been that long since he's seen her. He offers her the chance to work with the Avengers and leave Hydra for good, but she blames herself because Lindsay got hurt. And she knows she can't go back to Hydra and desperately wants a place to belong, but she ends up making the very mature decision to tell him that she needs time to figure some stuff out for herself before she joins up with anything else. She also decides to leave the hospital, leave Lindsay alone, and she goes to take down Hydra by herself. Specifically, she goes to try and take down the antagonist. As she's going there, she does start to notice how her pheromones affect the people around her and how that's influenced how everyone has treated her her entire life. It makes her uncomfortable, obviously, but it's something that now she's able to see and recognize and maybe come to terms a little bit with the things that have happened in her past and be a little bit less bitter about it, because it's not as much the fault of the people who treated her poorly up to now, except for the antagonist, who is just kind of a jerk. Okay, so this is where the main character has to pay a heavy price. This is also the point of the story where she's going to enter the Dragon's Lair and battle with the dragon. So this is where the hero gets to witness the true strength of the antagonist, and for that, it's going to be the antagonist actually fully taking over Hydra, which is something that has never been done before. It's always been a multi-headed organization, but she has it all completely under her thumb now, and she's done it very quickly. Now this is where the main character has to have a change of heart. The change of heart has to be that they overcome their flaw, the major flaw that we established at the very beginning of the story. And if they don't overcome that flaw, they'll become consumed by it. And this is the major difference between Spider-Woman and the antagonist of this story, because they both actually suffer from a feeling of self-hatred. The antagonist hates her pheromone ability. She hates the fact that she is able, without even trying, to get people to agree to anything she says. She wants more than anything for people to take her seriously because of who she is, because of her intelligence, because of her leadership ability. But because she has that pheromone ability, she believes that she will always have that crutch to lean on, and she hates that about herself. And then Spider-Woman, very similarly, she hates herself because she feels like she's a monster. Her entire life, everybody's always treated her poorly. They've always kept her at a distance. She's never really felt like she belonged anywhere, and she always felt like that was her fault. And so now, with the change of heart, she has to actually come to terms with who she is and what she's able to do. Basically, she has to learn to love herself or become exactly like the antagonist. After the antagonist cancels out Spider-Woman's pheromone, she escapes into a secure room, which would be the one where Spider-Woman was raised in, and she gives a kill order over a comm device. Bucky is still with Lindsay, and the kill order is for both of them. She's just trying to do anything she can to destroy any hope that Spider-Woman has. Spider-Woman can't get into the room to make her change the order. She can't override the control panel and can't cancel the kill order or get to her friends in time. And so she has to see something that she can use her ability in order to get past the system so that she can get to the antagonist and force her to cancel the kill order. So then what does she do? Oh, this is a conundrum. I'm imagining kind of like a venom shot sort of thing. Like if she uses her venom shot on 2 different parts of the door, she can override the magnetic lock because it's a bioelectrical shock that she releases from her hands. But touching it would also then expose her to the feedback from the magnetic lock, and she would be electrocuted. It's the return of the hook. And the hook was the trinket that was given to her for luck by the antagonist. And I think what she's going to figure out is she can use it to connect the 2 parts of the door without touching both sides of it, because if she's not touching both sides, then she's not completing a circuit within herself so that the electricity would pass all the way through her. It would go up her shoulder, which is still extremely painful, I know from firsthand experience, but not always lethal. So she uses the venom blast to short circuit the magnetic lock. It opens the door. She walks into the room and shuts the door behind her. She is sweating profusely from the pain of having been electrocuted from short-circuiting it, but she's still conscious and she's still strong enough to overpower the antagonist. The way I'm envisioning it is the antagonist's pupils will dilate, because even though she can't sweat from her armpits, if you can't sweat from one place, your body will make up for it by having you sweat other places more. And so her pheromones are still just pouring out of her right now due to the pain and the adrenaline. The room just fills up with the smell of her pheromones. The antagonist's pupils dilate. So then we cut to in front of the hospital where agents are encroaching on Lindsay's room, and they get a call to stop the hit, and they retreat. And then so Bucky goes to leave the hospital. He goes up to the front and he gets a message from one of the people at the front desk at the hospital, and it's in an old Hydra code that isn't used anymore. So Spider-Woman emerges in front of the Hydra compound. She's badly injured. She's barely able to stay up on her feet, and she collapses in front of the building and passes out. So the end of the story, the resolution, is all about the character having changed from who she was before. The Magic Flight home, she'll have snippets of Bucky finding her along with the other Avenger that she tried to kill at the beginning of the story and some S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. She'll hear shouting, there'll be motion as she's rocked around, then she'll hear the sound of doctors, medical machines beeping, Lindsay telling off S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, and then saying comforting things to her while she's asleep. She'll then awake. Bucky will tell her that for her work taking down an entire arm of Hydra, she has the opportunity where she can become an Avenger, or she can work with S.H.I.E.L.D. to clear her name and make up for the crimes that she's committed in the past. Lindsay is upset that Spider-Woman is going to be forced to work for yet more people and not be able to be her own person, and thinks that they should just leave her alone. But Bucky has to remind her that Spider-Woman is a notorious assassin, and she's committed a lot of crimes. So Spider-Woman, she comforts Lindsay, and then she tells them that she's not going to work for anyone, that she's going to take Lindsay's advice and just try and be her own person. Bucky says that they'll have to take her in. She'll have to serve time for the crimes that she's committed in the past. She's likely never going to be able to get out of prison. Spider-Woman, of course, is not going to let that happen either. So she throws her sweaty blankets at the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. She uses a venom shot to knock out the Avenger that's there. And she grabs Lindsay's hand and walks out of the room after giving Bucky a kiss on the cheek. He just lets her walk out, because I think out of everybody, he would understand the manipulation that she's gone through up to this point, and the fact that this is a genuine change and she doesn't want to be under yet another organization's thumb. Now that leaves us with the final piece, which is loose ends tied. And the loose ends tied, this is what I based the entire story around, is this image of Spider-Woman walking down the street and people being fearful of her and running away and getting angry at her. And rather than think of herself as a monster or be upset about it, she just watches it happen with a smile. And that's how the story ends. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with this plot that I've come up with so far. It's very simple. It's not anything too complex or, out of this world or anything. I think any complexities or any interesting elements is going to have to come when I'm actually writing it. And that is going to be not the next video, but the one after that is when I'm going to do that. Because the next video, I'm going to learn everything that I possibly can about how to write a script. So thank you for joining me today on CC Writes. Did you like the plot that I came up with for this story, or would you have gone a different direction? Let me know about it in the comments. And while you're commenting, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you'll know when the next video comes out. If you liked this story and you want to support my work, I have 2 books available on Amazon.com. You can follow me on Twitter at CCLepkeWrites, or consider donating to the CC Writes Patreon page. There are links in the description. And as always, thank you for joining me today in my writing adventures in imaginary places. I'll see you later.